So one question we get from a lot of clients is, why are my construction estimates so far apart? And in this video, I'm going to give you 5 of the most common reasons that you'll see vast differences in remodeling construction estimates. Okay, the first reason is that it's essentially just not the same project. This could be that one contractor either doesn't offer a service or just doesn't naturally normally include it. Some examples of this is when you're comparing an initial figure from a general contractor to an initial figure to a design build company. The design build company is normally including costs in the project to do design. The general contractor normally is not. Sometimes you'll see general contractors that have project management included. Sometimes they won't include it as a line item. Sometimes they won't even offer it or do it. Another common thing that I see in particularly kitchen remodels is some contractors will just exclude appliances, where others will include a budget for appliance. So really, the projects are not the same. And if you compound that on 5 or 10 line items that are included or not included, then you're looking at pretty significant difference in numbers and different projects. The way that you avoid this is you really work on getting detailed construction documents, selections, and specifications before you really know exactly what it's going to cost. All right, the second reason that we often see big discrepancies in these estimates is someone's not charging enough. In the construction industry, the barrier to entry is very low. And it's not uncommon for me to see somebody who worked as a carpenter or worked as a designer, and then they end up starting their own company, and it takes them often, what I see is about 5 years to figure out what they should end up charging. So, because they start their own company, they realize a year in, well, I got to raise my prices, I'm going to go out of business. They raise their prices, but not quite enough. They keep doing this until they go out of business. They find the sweet spot. So the question is like, why is this bad for you? You know, that's kind of their problem. They might go out of business because they're not charging enough. That's a good deal for me, right? Well, it might be, but it causes basically cash flow problems for the contractor, which look like to a consumer working on another project, not yours. If they're undercharging you, they've got to go work on somebody else's project to get actual cash to pay their bills, so then they can come back and try to finish yours. The other thing I've seen is people who get themselves into this position, they try to cut corners that you don't notice because they didn't bid the job right, they don't actually have the money to do it right, and so they really work hard to cut the corners that you're not going to notice, will make the project come out sort of okay and not totally lose it all on that project. And then the third reason is that company is not going to be around to service a warranty issue. That could be another issue, is that if they actually do end up going out of business, they're not going to be there when you need them. So how do you spot this? When you're comparing estimates and bids, the things I would ask is this guy part-time? Is this somebody who has a different job and contracts some of the time? Or is he really invested in giving you the experience and the product that you deserve? The other thing I'd ask is, how long has this guy been in business? I feel like if people have been in business around 10 years, they've got it figured out, or a lot more figured out than somebody that's been around for 3 or 4 years. Then the last question I would ask is his ballpark price? That's the price that they show up to their house and you ask them, how much do you think this could cost? They don't do any calcs. If his ballpark price is unreasonably lower than other people's ballpark price, that would be a red flag to me. The third reason that you could have a major discrepancy in bids is that one contractor is charging too much. The way that you spot this as a consumer is the first red flag is discounts. If anybody's offering you a discount on their product or service, then I would assume that their service was originally priced higher than they need in order to make a sustainable business. A discount is a major red flag to me. Another thing that you can do is really review the scope detail in the contract. If the contract is not detailed and you don't all know really crystal clear what you're getting, then there's a lot more room for somebody to overcharge you. As far as you think you're getting a certain level of cabinetry, he's actually going to provide this level of cabinetry. That's a good way to spot somebody that might be overcharging. The third thing you should look at is ask him about it and then evaluate his response. So ask him, why did I get 3 bids and yours is 50,000 more than anybody else's? And if he comes back with a lot of words and not a lot of substance, then that's a red flag to me. But if he comes back to you with questions, maybe even asking to see the other two, and then gives you good, specific information about why his bid is more expensive than other people's, that would be a green light in my mind, where he's probably legitimate, and I would put more scrutiny on the other two. Finally, one of the things that I will say is what I see in the construction and home improvement world is that most contractors who are ripping people off in this way, which is upfront prices are more expensive, too expensive, is that it happens in the single trade space. So roofing, siding, windows. The more complex projects, it's harder to bid, it's harder to estimate, and it's a little harder to overcharge people up front. The people that end up overcharging clients, they end up doing it normally a different way. The fourth reason that you could see a big discrepancy in construction estimates is that you're dealing with at least one or more bait and raise contractor, where they're gonna start with a low number that they know you'll be happy with, and then it's gonna go up from there. It could go up for 2 reasons. One is they're just not really good at budgeting, and the other is outright deception. Doesn't really matter why. I've totally seen both, but you want to know how to spot them. And there's 2 issues really in there, or 2 time frames. One is during the design process, the project cost doubles. And then during construction, you get change order to death. So how do you spot design spikes or design cost increases? Well, it's a little bit harder than the second one, but you want to look for a clearly defined design process with true pricing updates along the way. You want to ask, how often will I get pricing updates? What will those be based on? The right answer is you're going to get pricing updates pretty much as early as we can, and they're going to be based on getting information from the people that have the final say on pricing, whether that's a project manager or a subcontractor, but that's the right answer. Then ask when the people with the final say on price get involved. So super important when you're not design build or not working with a design build company, also important with a design build company. You want the project manager or whoever has final say on that final price, specifically, you want them to get involved in the project early on. So let's talk about change order death. This is where you've got a low bid, and then in construction, the price gets jacked up. And the reason that this is normally we're dealing with something that's not a true fixed price contract. So either it's a cost plus contract, or it is a fixed price contract with a lot of allowances in the contract, which are buckets of money that are not fixed, that basically the contractor doesn't know what that's going to cost. So he says, I'm going to guess that it's 10,000, but we're going to figure it out later in construction. So make sure that you've got a true fixed price contract. And then you want fully detailed construction drawings and specs. If you've got any room for interpretation in the drawings and specs, in general, a contractor who's trying to get a low bid and get a job is going to interpret them in the way that makes it as cheap as possible. So you want to inspect the drawing selections and contract. And if you don't know what those should look like, check out some links in this video's notes, and I'll link to a couple of articles on our website that give you the details that you should look for. The other reason they could be different is I've totally seen some mistakes. We've made mistakes, I've seen other people make mistakes. One of the worst mistakes I ever saw was somebody I knew, and the contractor never really admitted that it was a typo, but it seemed eerily close to a typo, where the excavation for this very large complex project was budgeted in the cost plus budget for $3,500. And at the end of the project, the cost for the excavation had increased to about $350,000. You know, the story was he just took the low bid, those guys went out of business, couldn't perform, but that just seems eerily similar to the 2 numbers being very close and it being a typo. But the reason it's bad for you if something like that happens is you end up paying the difference as the client, especially with a contract like that where it's a cost plus contract. What you want to make sure to do to avoid this is understand what's included. So ask about allowances, ask about appliances, ask about design or project management or things that are important to you that you include. Those are the 5 reasons that you'll see significant differences between different construction estimates. Now, subscribe to our channel for more educational content about home remodeling.